Awesome. All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to ION ESI for March 2023. We've been doing this for a while now, and super excited for today, even more so than usual because we've got some special guests. We've lost one of our co-hosts, but we've gained two special guests. But I am joined today by Michael Quartararo, our president at ACEDS, and I'm also joined by Annette Habib and Sarah Roberts, both of True Staffing Partners. Hi, ladies.
Hello.
Hello, welcome, and so excited to have you both join us today. This should be, let's see if we do much better than when we do it with Jared. So I don't know where Jared is today. Mike has his assumptions, but we are going to go quick and fast as usual. Just so everybody remembers, this is very interactive. This is not about Annette, Sarah, Mike, and I just talking amongst ourselves. We want to have your questions. Annette and Sarah are here to answer those. Mike is here to answer questions, and I am as well. So please feel free to throw questions in the chat, and we will try and get to as many as possible. So, Sarah, do you want to kick us off with some of the stats?
Yes, absolutely. So as far as like speed of hiring goes and things that we're seeing, it's changed a lot. I mean, I think we've slowed down a bit in the beginning of this quarter as compared to 2021. And I think that's going to start like stabling out a little bit. As far as like the beginning of this year, I think it's the new norm, especially for mid-market. Law firms have really slowed down too, specifically because they're really holding out on wanting people to be in an office. And so that's the biggest thing that we've seen over the last couple of weeks. And so I think this is just going to be the new norm, 2023 versus what we've seen 2021 through the last year. Okay.
Annette, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think where last year, the speed of hire was, from a time a position open to a hire being made was, it was as short as like 7 to maybe, 15 days. But we're seeing now like at least a good, month before a hire is made. So it's definitely slowed down a bit. I think that'll probably be the theme for the rest of this year.
Excellent. All right. What else do you have for us, Sarah?
So honestly, the salary averages haven't changed quite too much. I know you guys kind of touched on like the entry level stuff, and we have some stuff to talk about from a scholarship program standpoint that's going to be like very relevant to some of the entry level people. But that's 65 to 75 is really the barrier to entry for people that are wanting to come in with some like really good tenacious attitude mentality, but maybe not quite the experience yet. And so I think there was some discussions. I need to pull the numbers. I think we've placed another 1 or 2 since last time you guys touched on this. There was 6. I think there's been about 8. Of those 8, 6 of those people were remote, and 3 companies now rather than the 2 companies from before. So barrier to entry, but a lot more about the person's attitude and experience and just like general excitement about being in the industry. And then really taking initiative and getting some of those certifications is actually putting those individuals above other people, even if they have a little bit more tech experience, because they're wanting to invest in people that have already gone and invested in themselves, And so I don't know if we want to interrupt this to kind of talk about the scholarship program a little bit, but I think that's really where you can really set yourself apart from other people that might have some of the tech experience and maybe some work experience by looking into investing in yourself and, gaining some of these like different technology certifications that, you might not have otherwise had access to.
Excellent. No, I think this is a perfect time for us to talk about that. I am all in on what's your personality? What do you bring to the table? How eager are you to learn? I'm always learning something new. I probably drive Mike crazy because I'm always looking at different things to learn. So for me, I think it's extremely important, right? Coming from being a paralegal or being a project manager in another industry, but who is eager to find out more. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about the True Scholarship Program. Who wants to take the lead on that? Was that Annette?
Yes, I can go ahead and talk about it. So True has officially launched our annual scholarship program. We've been doing this for about 12 years. This year we have 10 partners, and the opportunities range from live to online training programs and opportunities for taking certification exams. One of our partners is ACEDS, and they're giving away one US and one Canadian SEDS training package. And then a new one this year, which kind of goes to what Sarah was talking about with folks who are looking to kind of break into the industry. One of our partners is CDS Legal, and they're actually giving away a paid internship. So it's a month-long remote internship. It's up to 40 hours a week. They'll provide, this person with a laptop, materials, and kind of train them up, teach them the relativity tool. And, this is really a great opportunity for somebody who wants to break into the industry and really, get their foot in the door with an e-discovery company and get some real hands-on experience. So those are just two of our partners, but there are several others. All the information is on our website. How to apply is on our website, and the deadline to apply is on March 19th.
Awesome. I think Deja is going to drop the link for us in the chat. And so once we get that, and Mike, any thoughts? What do you want to say about the True Scholarship Program?
Just super excited to always be a part of it. I think that, part of any organization in this industry or individual for that matter, if you've got the opportunity to give something back, I mean, a scholarship is it's a no-brainer to me. And it shows you're a good citizen. And that's, I mean, really what, I don't want to call it charity. It's not charity in the strict sense. We're trying to help lift people up. And so, that's why we participate every year, and we have for many years, and why we'll continue to do it. ACEDS gives away a lot of scholarships, and folks who will qualify can apply on the website.
I think a common misconception too is that it's like for entry-level people, and I don't mean to bring that up when we're talking about entry-level candidates. There's a wide range and variety, so I don't want to discourage anybody from looking into it. And I actually think, some people that are more senior in the industry, may benefit from some of the tools that maybe they haven't used or they don't have access to in their current role, that they can, look to diversify their backgrounds and participate that way. So it's absolutely privacy, security, e-discovery at all levels, I think really benefit from any and all of these, and would definitely encourage everybody to take a look.
Yes, it's just going to make you more well-rounded, right? Depending on what your roles are.
Yeah.
So I think that's the important piece. Go ahead, Annette.
It looks good on the resume. It shows employers that you're being proactive and like learning things that maybe you haven't really been exposed to before. But also, like, for example, if someone has been in the industry for a long time and maybe doesn't really actually have hands-on relativity experience, and they go ahead and they win this scholarship and they're now, studying and they become an RCA, it just helps them to better, be able to talk about the tool, even though they may not have the hands-on experience during an interview process. And, it just shows the employer that they're really, serious about maybe learning something new and learning a new tool in the industry. So it never hurts. It looks really good on the resume.
And I think it's good for anyone here. If you've already got those skills, that's fine, but you should try and push that link out and offer it to your team members, to colleagues. I know I've been sending it out because I'm constantly being asked for how are ways that I can upskill myself? What are the things that I need to do? So I think taking advantage of the True Scholarship is a perfect opportunity for that, right? The same way we do that with ACEDS, but I definitely think it helps to reinforce that. And I think one of the things that here at ACEDS, and Mike has been a huge advocate for this, is lawyers, right? Lawyers who are like, I don't need to know specific things like privacy or e-discovery. I mean, Mike could probably talk about that a little bit, but I think that is probably helpful also as you're starting to go into some of these roles.
Yeah. And for me, it really just ties back to this notion that's, and I've been screaming about this more recently than in past years, but for more than 12
how hard
years,
are you screaming?
Yeah. Apparently not loud enough, but, for more than 10, I'd say 12 years now, we've had this technology competence requirement for lawyers. I will grant you that it's not well defined and nobody really knows what that means. No one's actually said you have to do this, 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 and this to be technologically competent. But, the notion that everything we do is geared towards technology competence is it's really important to the profession, frankly, and to good client service. That's what this is all about. People forget all the time, and I write about this all the time, is that the whole industry is really driven by the whole legal services industry. Forget e-discovery for a moment. It's driven by the need for corporate legal clients to have their legal work done. And so if you can't deliver a competent representation, how is it that you're going to give your client a good outcome? Because I don't know of anything that doesn't, I can't think of a thing that doesn't somehow involve technology today. Not one thing. So knowing privacy, knowing e-discovery, knowing how to use Excel, for crying out loud. These are just things that are not taught in law school. And that's just critical. So whether you have it on your resume or it's something you keep in your knapsack, as a secret weapon, it just technology competence has got to be the goal moving forward.
So we've got some questions in the chat. So I'm going to throw one at each, at Annette and one at Sarah. So first one is going to be for Sarah. With a tightening economy and layoffs continuing for the next possible year, if not beyond, is contract work the prevailing thing right now?
Yeah, so we could maybe skip a couple of slides, or we'll get into talking about this too. But the contract workforce went up, right, when we saw potential recessions happening. People may disagree. I think maybe like there's talks about the recession coming and the economists saying that there is. We're not in one now, but from a prediction standpoint, we've seen that go up. And I think we'll continue to see that go up this year from a contract standpoint, or be about the same. I think that as organizations are figuring out what to do, and you're not going to get a deal on somebody these days right now, especially in a law firm. Those like salaries that we have been discussed in the past are absolutely still the case. If you're somebody that is down to be in a hybrid capacity, go into the office 2 or 3 days a week in a major city, you have a real opportunity coming out of a vendor, moving into a law firm, and really increasing from a compensation perspective. I think that if organizations are looking for that deal, that's contracts, right? Because you can make about as much in 8 months as you are making in 12 working on contract as the employee. Have a little bit more control over your hours and things like that. A lot of our clients leverage contract from a quality of life standpoint to offset their full-time employees too. So they might not need to hire a full-time employee. And so they can get more of a deal by hiring a contractor and being able to like scale up and down from an hours perspective. I think that's what we'll continue to see into this year, but we're at the new norm as far as contract positions go. And it's probably about 50% of what we're seeing in e-discovery. I think in cyber and privacy, they're replacing full-time people with contractors. We just happen to do like there's a lot more corporate opportunity in cybersecurity and privacy. E-discovery, it makes up only about 5%. So, maybe those people are a little bit more of a risk than a vendor or a law firm, but yeah, that's going to continue to be the new norm.
And Sarah, it's a little cheaper to have a contract. You don't have to pay them benefits, all the other sort of intangibles that cost money when you hire a full-time FT.
Yeah,
right?
For the organization, we offer benefits and 401k and things like that for our contractors. But yeah, it's less expensive from the organization's perspective. Right. They're not having to invest in a full-time employee. They can scale up and down, and it win-win for everybody.
So it's easy to conclude that in a time of I call it uncertainty, right? Because we're not in a recession. I personally don't think we're headed for a recession, but
he's very adamant about that. So
I am. I just don't see it. All the other indicators are there, and I think the media overhypes it because they need something to talk about. But we can get back to that. That's another podcast for another day.
Yeah.
Well, we'll talk about it later because it's all, we've got some things that the media seems to not want to stop talking about. So, but we can talk about it later.
No, that's true. Now you made me lose my thought. So let's move on.
Well, Mike, you compared it, I feel like I overheard a conversation of comparing it to like the housing market. You know what I mean? It's just like a weird time. And, when there's kind of a shortage of availability, that's when these interest rates are up and things like that. So I thought that was a really interesting comparison.
Yeah, and I remember what I was going to say. So it's just really a measure of caution, right? Organizations, law firms, they're being cautious. They hire a contractor because they don't want to commit to the full-time person. It's a little bit cheaper. It gets them what they need for now. It fills the gap, so on and so forth. So it's a little bit of risk aversion and just caution, I think, in the market, right?
Yeah, I was going to add that I think, obviously we've been hearing in the market that there's a lot of layoffs and, companies might be preparing for this possible recession, but the work is still there. And so they're laying folks off, but the work is still there. But they may not have the headcount to bring on, a full-time hire, or there might be some hiring freezes in place. But a workaround for that is to hire contractors. And I think that's a reason why we're seeing a lot of the uptick, because the work is still there. It needs to be done and folks need help. So a contractor is a way to kind of help bridge that gap.
I also think some of the layoffs in tech have been a little bit of an excuse.
Yeah.
Potentially. And for other reasons, and
air quotes,
stock
excuse.
markets and things like that. Yes. And I think when a lot of these major companies that are all over the news for all different reasons are laying people off, it makes people a little bit nervous and uneasy. And so there's a bit of a trickle, I guess, of uncertainty.
Excellent. So I want to go to our second question. This one I'm going to throw over to you, Annette. How would you recommend a person goes about transitioning? And I'm going to do two parts. This is not part of the question, but I'm going to add two parts here. How would you recommend a person goes about transitioning from a legal professional to an e-discovery analyst or above, right? Or another position. And then the other question on top of that would be, for someone who's gotten laid off, how do they transition into that contractor work? Because some people may be like, I just need a full-time job, right? And I want a full-time job, I want benefits. So let's talk about both of those. Let's take the first one, right? Transitioning from a legal professional to an e-discovery analyst, which is still a legal professional. I just want to say e-discovery analyst is a legal professional. So let's talk about that transition.
So I think that, one of the first things to do is probably to, go ahead and actually look up some of the certifications that would help them to get into the door, whether it be relativity or ACEDS, and kind of just start to learn a little bit more on their own about the industry. And of course, all of that will look really good on the resume. So showing employers that, again, you're being proactive, you're serious about breaking into the industry, you're looking into the technology that's being used and trying to study up on it. But then also, becoming a member of different, like starting to network, joining groups on LinkedIn, becoming part of the, Women in E-Discovery chapter and groups like that, and just really starting to network and meet people in the industry. Think about maybe joining some of the conferences. Legal Week is coming up in New York, and perhaps, making an appearance there, shaking some hands, getting to know people. And then not being afraid to apply to, of course, if you're not as maybe familiar with what types of, who the companies are that you should be applying to for e-discovery, you could always reach out to an agency such as True to, kind of help make those introductions and, not be afraid to kind of apply to some of those positions. And, I think the right company will see how eager somebody is to kind of break into the industry and give them an opportunity.
I think that kind of what you have to think about is what are the, going back to, I think, Sarah, you said earlier, what are the soft skills that you have from doing other specific legal roles that you can apply to a role as an e-discovery analyst or project manager or any other one that is there. So how do you, it might be that working with someone through an agency is easier because they'll say, don't worry about applying for that. And usually you'll feel more comfortable about applying for a role through that. But I think it's probably the same, right? If you're a legal professional trying to break into an e-discovery role and you aren't familiar with the tools, it's just about taking that chance, that opportunity, right? We've always been told as women, this might not be necessarily true for men, Mike, but women are always afraid to apply for roles because they're like, I don't have 100% of all these skills. And I think that's the same, right? Going from a legal professional to say, I want to apply for this e-discovery role. What do I need to do? Do I need 100% of all these skills?
Yeah, I always tell my candidates that a job description is more of like this wish list, but there's usually never that one candidate that meets every bullet point on a job description. And employers are, definitely, for the right candidate with the right attitude, is willing to teach someone what they may not know in ediscovery. So definitely don't be afraid to apply.
Good. Mike, any thoughts?
I have always viewed job seeking, job changing, whatever you want to call it, as a numbers game. And what I mean by that is apply for every open position there is, even if you don't qualify, get the practice interviewing. It is a skill to a certain extent. Your resume is what your resume is. Your skills are what your skills are. You're going to fumble over some of those interviews. You're going to not get a lot of those jobs, but eventually someone's going to see the worth in you and they're going to offer you a job. And just keep going. Don't get discouraged if you get told no. That's my best advice for job searchers in any industry.
Yeah. And I am, I kind of go back to what Annette said, right? Be in the room, listen to what people are asking, learn what the questions are, what their answers are. Ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask those questions. People will point you in the right direction as well, or provide you the answers that you need so that you can continue to build up your knowledge.
I think too, Maribel, that a lot of people walk away from a job they didn't get, an interview where they were not successful, and they think, oh, I lack this, I'm missing that, I didn't do this, I fumbled over that. It's not always the case. A lot of full-time hires are really about fit, and it's about attitude. It's again, your skills are what your skills are. Your resume should outline your skills so they know what those are. It's so important that you impress during the interview and really show that you're going to be a team player, or you're going to have the right attitude, or you're going to fit into whatever the workflow is within the organization you're interviewing at. That's almost more important than your skills, because you can learn new stuff. You can't change who you are.
Yeah. I agree. And I think the one time where I'll play devil's advocate and disagree on part of that is right now, law firms are desperate, and we're going to see them like making concessions in certain areas. But I actually think, and Annette and I were talking about this earlier, that law firms are a little bit less concerned about necessarily like fit and culture as they are about skill set. I think in certain roles, depending on the situation, of course, level of position too. I don't think that doesn't mean that somebody can't rise to the occasion or get trained up or, gain some additional certifications before starting a new job. So I don't discourage people from considering all options. But I think the one place where organizations are less concerned necessarily about fit and culture is sometimes going to be law firms, when they really need, people to come in, because like we talked about, the work is still there, and, they need somebody that can come in and, do the work and make an immediate impact.
And I would add too, Sarah, that it kind of changes when you're talking about leadership, right? That's a different animal.
100%.
Right. If you're talking about the sort of line workers, I think what I said holds true. But when you start moving into management, middle management, director level, it's a different conversation entirely, right?
And those roles are absolutely farther and few between, because people go into those roles and sit there and stay. So, not to feel like we're beating a dead horse or anything, but those leadership positions and those people that either feel stagnant or they don't have that next step, that's where diversifying your skill set, looking into different certifications across privacy, information governance, all of those things will really differentiate you. So when those small amounts of leadership roles actually do open up, you're separating yourself from other people in the same type of role, and can be ready to step right in.
Excellent.
And I'll just also quickly add to that, when Michael was talking about just apply to everything. I mean, you actually never know what's going to happen on an interview. You could be interviewing for one particular position, and by the end of it, you're offered a whole completely different role that interviewer, after getting to know you and your personality, what you bring to the table, there may be another opportunity that is a better fit for you, and the conversation could turn, and it might be a better opportunity. So it's always good to have those conversations. It never hurts to take an interview and learn more about the company and what they have to offer.
Excellent. Okay, we've got another question, and I think we've talked about this on and off over the last few months. I think we started the conversation here in October. But so the question is, some law firms have had recent layoffs of support staff. We saw a few earlier this week, citing market conditions, looming possible recession. Are we likely to see more? How did the three of you, who wants to take that on?
I think that this is more like company specific than what we're seeing a trend in, because we really haven't seen much of a trend, especially in law firms. And you know, maybe I'll change my mind in a month from now and say this was the beginning of the trend, but I really think it's more company specific than it is we're going to see this big trend happening.
Right.
In my opinion.
Mike?
So I'm going to push back a little bit, Sarah Roberts.
Please.
I just, having spent most of my career at big law, I kind of know how this goes.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's changed that much since I've left the law firm life. There's a couple of variables here. Sure, there's market conditions that affect law firm CFOs looking at the bottom line and saying, okay, our budget for the year is X and we're not getting there. So what's the quickest thing to cut is, you know, salaries, right? It's the most expensive part of the operation. I think on some level, there's a little bit of excuse going on here. And I say excuse, air quotes, excuse, right? It's, you've got some talent, you're not entirely happy with them, they're not entirely productive, good time to make a change because others are doing it, right? And if I've learned anything about the law firm market in any capacity, they do what others in the space are doing. So it's a little bit of a mixed bag. Some firms might be struggling. I'm not aware of a firm that's truly struggling, right, on their bottom line. So, you know, why are the market for everybody was up last year. There's probably a firm here or there that's not the case, but I don't see that as, well, you get my point.
Yeah, and it could be strategy to utilize like outside resources. And if that's the case, then they're going to end up hiring back and utilizing the same people that were just let go because they're going to go to a.
And that's where I was going, Sarah, because there's,
yeah.
in the same breath that I'm hearing about layoffs,
Yep.
I'm hearing about hiring.
Yeah.
So it's weird. I saw an article the other day and I was like, what the heck is going on here? And so it's, I don't see, to your point, any widespread trends.
Yeah.
But the other side of that is a lot of the things that happen at law firms do not get attention. So we call them, you know, the quiet layoffs, the silent layoffs, whatever. So there's other layoffs going on that we're not hearing about. I mean, I've read probably about 5 or 6 firms in the last 2 months. That's not a lot of firms. If you think about the number of law firms in the United States, 5 or 6 is tiny.
Yeah.
But again, it's just the cyclical nature of the individualized businesses, to your point, and how they're looking at their bottom line.
Yeah. So someone did put in Goodwin Procter laid off a lot of people and then hired a whole new group. And then I'm wondering if maybe not so much on the law firm side, but some of the companies, could it be that they're positioning themselves for purchasing an acquisition or going into an IPO, or like there could be a number of other things, maybe not necessarily on the law firm side, but in other areas where we could see that they are preparing for something bigger than just, you know, let's lay off and because there's a recession. That's always a possibility, I'm going to assume.
Yep.
Right.
Okay, we have 1 minute left. We've got legal week coming up in less than 21 days. Are you both going to be there?
We will both be attending. We'll be there the entire conference.
Okay, excellent. Does True have, I know you've had a booth at Relativity Fest. Will you have a booth this year, or can people just seek the team out throughout the conference?
Yeah, we don't have a booth this year, but we'd love to meet anyone and everyone at the conference. Definitely just reach out to us. We'll set up a time to meet with you. Definitely just come looking for us, but yeah, we'll be there.
Excellent. Yeah. And so Mike and I will be there. Our ACEDS team will be there. We do have a booth. I don't have the booth number offhand, but if Deja knows it, she'll drop it in. And we will be having our community cocktail event during Legal Week. It will be Tuesday evening. So look for your email for more information on that. And we're at time. Any last words from anyone?
Man, time flies when you're having fun. This is great.
Yes. Well, and hopefully we can have both of you back soon. We'll see if Jared gets sick again or just wants to go off on vacation and doesn't want to do this with us. But I think always having a nice new faces from True Staffing is always good, so people know who else is over there working diligently with us in our partnership. And Mike, anything else you want to share?
I'm upset I didn't get to complain about generative AI.
Generative AI. I'll give you 1 minute if you want to just talk about your over. Why don't we leave that conversation for next time?
It ties into the job market, believe it or not, but we'll talk about it next time.
Okay. We had such a great conversation with Annette and Sarah about other things. So that was more important.
Yeah.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you so much for having us.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.